Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start in just one moment, please. Just give us a moment. I would like to make the announcements. The reason that the Sergeant of Arms asked you to, if you were standing against the wall, to go outside and watch or get you a seat. We're glad for you to have a seat here, but Fire Marshal says that nobody can stand around against the walls. That's just their rules. Or block the doors or anything like that. So that's the only reason we ask anybody to move. I see the comptrollers are standing up here. They'll be taking a seat in a minute. We can get an additional seat if they need another seat. But that's the reason that you were asked. We used to stand up all the time, but they've got on to us about that. We'll be starting just in a minute. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this February the 27th, 2023 meeting of the Government Operations Joint Subcommittee on Education, Health, and General Welfare to order. Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Senator Jackson. Senator Jackson is present. Senator Kyle. Senator Kyle is present. Senator Lowe. Present. Senator Lowe is present. Senator Oliver. Here. Senator Oliver is present. Senator Roberts. Here. Senator Roberts is present. Vice Chair Crow. Here. Senator Crow is present. Representatives Himmer. Here. Kumar. Here. Littleton. Here. Reagan. Here. Rudder. Here. Chairman Carr.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum in both chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Well, once again, we appreciate y'all coming out here today. Is there any comments from anyone on the committee before we get started? Any personal orders? Everybody okay back there? Senator Oliver, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you for TSU and what you bring to this committee, into this community, into this state. As you know, this TSU sits in my district, and so it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the outstanding turnout that is here. This is definitely evident of a community that cares about its institution. And thank you, Dr. Glover, for your leadership. Thank you to the board for your leadership. Thank you to the students, the staff, the faculty who have made this institution what it is. And I just want to commend you for the resolve that you have and have had to have over numerous years, despite numerous obstacles, despite numerous barriers, and you're still here, standing and standing proud. So thank you, Tennessee State University, for being here today, and I fully support your efforts and what you're doing in this state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess a point of order for myself. President Dr. Glover, would you stand, please? Being recognized. Thank you, ma'am. Just a few housekeeping rules. We do have a sign-up sheet at the front. If you would like to have a public comment, let me make this one comment, though. But first of hand, this is a sunset hearing only on the Board of Trustees for the Tennessee State University. It has nothing to do with the Dr. Glover, or it has nothing to do with the university itself. This is only a sunset hearing for the Board of Trustees of the Tennessee State University. And to elaborate a little bit more on that, we're going to ask, since they went before the ad hoc committee, if Chairman Kerry Roberts would be recognized at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On a personal order, I just want to acknowledge, too, that we have former Senator Brenda Gilmore here sitting on the front row, and many of us enjoyed working with her for many years, and it's good to see you, Brenda, and glad you're here. And I will say we have a lot of fond memories on being on TV together, and had just developed a great friendship, and glad to see that you're here today, and welcome. I do want to make just a kind of set the table, if you will, so everybody understands what's taking place today. The Government Operations Committee has legislative oversight of the 200, and I believe at latest count, 265 entities that comprise Tennessee state government. As I frequently say, this can be as big of a deal as the Department of Transportation or Department of Health. It can be as obscure as the Board of Polysomnography, if you know what that is. But also all of our institutions fall into the purview of the Government Operations Committee, and so whether it's the Board of Trustees for East Tennessee State University or UTC or in this case Tennessee State University, this is a very routine matter. So these entities are all legislatively created. They're given a certain lifespan. Generally it's 4 years, sometimes it's only 1 or 2 years, sometimes it's 8 years. But this is a very routine matter that when their sunset comes up, they frequently have an audit by the Comptroller's Office, and I do want to acknowledge that we have a very, Tennessee really leads the nation in terms of state audit. We've got 300-some auditors who are state employees who do these audits, and they're under the supervision of the Tennessee Comptroller. And they do a great job of auditing many of these entities. So it's not just Tennessee State University that would be subject to a sunset audit. It's any number of entities that are subject to these audits. So when the audit is released, we schedule a hearing, and the legislators have an opportunity to hear from the auditors. We also have an opportunity to hear the response from management. All that's contained in the audit report, but we do it in person. And then after that presentation is made, members have an opportunity to ask questions of either the Comptroller's Office or they can ask questions of management. And so all of this is extremely routine. It's what we do every single month. We meet every month throughout the year, and this is what we do for these 265 entities. Now, we don't normally have a room full of people when we have an audit. So I do want to say thank you for being engaged and being interested in being here today. Quite frequently, these proceedings can be a little bit on the boring side sometimes. We'll have school kids come in and say that was kind of boring, because frequently they are. It's a very, very routine matter. So when we're done today with the presentation from the Comptroller and the response from management and members ask questions, we'll also have an opportunity for public comment. Now, I will remind everybody the public comment needs to be limited to the Board of Trustees. Okay, so if you want to give public comment about something about TSU or about personnel, it's only about the Board of Trustees that would be appropriate in this hearing. So, and then after we're done, we are subject to a motion. We're subject to no motion, and then we'll carry on from there. So I hope that provides some clarity that what we're doing today is something that we are legislatively charged with doing. It's a very routine matter, and I think for those of you that are in attendance, I think that you'll find that this is part of the process that makes Tennessee government very well run and very well done. So, Mr. Chairman, I hope that explanation kind of helps everybody sort of understand where we are today and why we're here today. And again, I just want to thank everybody for being interested. I wish that we always had this level of interest in the things that we do. And it's very encouraging to see that people would come out and want to participate in the process. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Roberts. Anything else from Senator Crow? You're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I would just make note that our sergeants at arms are appropriately dressed today in the right colors, both of them. That's a good thing. And we always want to make note that we're always happy when our legendary Justin Wilson, our Comptroller Emeritus, is with us. Justin, are you back there somewhere? I think he is. There he is. We're always happy to have him with us. Don't know if we can do these things without some guidance from our Comptroller Emeritus.
Thank you, Chairman Senator Crow, and duly noted on the color of those coats, gentlemen. Anything else from the committee? Seeing not, we're going to get started with these procedures. We're going to ask if the comptroller will come and sit to my left, to their right, and also whoever's representing the Tennessee State University Board of Directors. If Dr. Cole, if you will come and sit up here, we'll ask. We will go out of session. And first of all, we will hear from our comptroller, Mr. Jason Mumpire. Mr. Jason Mumpire, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. I am glad to be back here for lots of reasons, not the least of which is I am an alumni of this committee from back in the day. I served on this committee, this Government Operations Committee, and I'm glad to be here with you today. I think it is, Mr. Chairman, as you and the Senate Chairman described, very appropriate to be here today, reviewing the sunset of the Tennessee State University Board of Trustees. And you have asked us from the Comptroller's Office to come and make a presentation about some of the work we've done over the past few months related to things that have occurred at the university, particularly in regard to the scholarship program and the housing program. And we made this presentation last week to the Senate Ad Hoc Committee, and at your request, we're happy to be back to make it again to you today. Now, before I begin my remarks, I would like to recognize some of the people responsible for the special report. At the table here, we have Russell Moore, who's our Director of the Office of Research and Education Accountability. We have Nicole Crittenden and Donovan Patterson, who are also with our office. They work in our State Audit Division. You're going to hear more from them in just a minute. Now, members, I know we have provided you with a hard copy and a digital copy of the Comptroller's special report on the housing situation at Tennessee State University, and I hope that you have had a chance to read that. That's what we will talk with you about today. There are things in it that are surprising and unfortunately disheartening. Now, the Comptroller's Office was charged last fall to conduct this review, to begin this review, to learn more about the sudden surge in student enrollment and the request for emergency housing that forced many students to be housed in hotels all across the Nashville landscape. Now, what we found when we started this report, Mr. Chairman and members, is that what happened was management at TSU made a series of decisions that put the university in a housing crisis. And clearly, it is a crisis that they should have seen coming. Now, one thing we will discuss today, in particular, because we're here to talk about the Board of Trustees, is that it appears the Board of Trustees were deficient in their fiduciary duty in regard to keeping an eye on what was happening with the decisions made at the campus. Now, it is, Mr. Chairman, easy to see that the university has experienced a housing shortage since at least 2017. And nevertheless, as I mentioned, in the fall of 2021, management decided to conduct an extensive recruiting campaign to bring in more students, which by itself is not an issue, but unfortunately, these students were promised housing. housing that Tennessee State University management knew they did not have a sufficient supply of. One key aspect of that aggressive recruiting strategy was a decision made to quadruple the scholarship budget from $5.2 million in 2021 to $28.3 million in 2022. We'll talk more about that later. But nearly 75% of the 1,722 scholarships that were offered were what we call full cost scholarships that guaranteed housing. Now, in just a minute, you'll hear more about how many of the students who receive scholarships may actually have not met the GPA requirements for the scholarships they received. They may indeed have qualified for the scholarships based on financial need, but we found no documentation to support that in the sample of student files we reviewed. You'll also hear, and this is key to today, members, you'll also hear that management did not present and receive final approval of the $28.3 million scholarship budget from the Board of Trustees until November of 2022, which is well after the fall semester had begun and well after the money had already been awarded. And that is key when you're considering the fiduciary duty of the Board of Trustees. Now, TSU's mission is about transforming lives and promoting academic excellence. As I said last week, and as I'll say again today, I think everybody here wants Tennessee State University to be successful, from its Grammy-winning marching band to its athletic teams to its academic programs. There's no doubt that everybody here wants students to have positive experiences and not to have to wonder where they're going to live next semester or whether or not their scholarship award that they were promised will ever come through. You mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the audits we perform, and certainly we want the audits we perform to reflect strong financial practices instead of years of repeat findings. And while it is clear that Tennessee State University has a goal to increase enrollment, it should only do that if it is prepared to serve its students. Now, while the review we're giving you today, the review that we gave the committee last week, is broad, we unfortunately couldn't even begin to explore other areas such as student amenities, staffing, classroom instruction, food services, all which we can know for sure are impacted by the surging enrollment and the aggressive recruiting. And as we begin today to give you this, as you've requested, picture of the housing situation, I'm going to turn it over to our team, and I think Nicole is going to lead off first.
Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Nicole Crittenden. I'm with the Comptroller's Office. I'm joined by my colleagues Donovan Patterson and Russell Moore, and we're going to present the key conclusions from the Comptroller's special report on TSU. Our first key conclusion is that TSU has repeatedly fallen short of sound fiscal practices, adequate documentation, and responsive communications to concerned students and parents. In the 2021 financial audit of TSU, our office noted multiple uncorrected prior audit findings. These stemmed from management's disregard of basic financial controls and fiscal management. Specifically, our auditors identified a lack of processes to record significant financial transactions, perform routine bank reconciliations, and carry out other basic and fundamentally important financial practices. They also identified errors in financial reporting for 7 consecutive years. With regard to inadequate documentation, we noted that approximately 1/3 of all freshmen who received scholarships for the 22-23 academic year did not meet the scholarship's minimum GPA requirements. Now, these students might have qualified based on their financial need instead, but the student files that we reviewed contained no documentation to that effect. Some other examples of inadequate documentation involved a file review we conducted as part of our research. We noted that 20 of the 59 student files we reviewed, that either the GPA was missing on the scholarship listing, the transcript was missing from the student's file, or the GPA that was on the transcript was not comparable. For example, it might have been based on a 100-point scale instead of a 4.0 scale. And as most of you know, The Comptroller's Office houses the HERO, the Higher Education Resource Officer. The HERO is a resource for the questions and concerns of faculty, staff, employees, and students in higher education systems and institutions in Tennessee. Starting on August the 1st, 2022, the HERO received concerns from multiple parents and students about unfulfilled scholarships, admissions, and housing issues at TSU. And in many cases, TSU solved those concerns. But the numerous complaints that were filed with the HERO indicated a lack of responsiveness and communication on TSU's part. In late October of last year, TSU officials identified a need to improve internal communications between the departments responsible for housing, enrollment, and scholarships. Then in November, TSU stated they planned to establish a customer relations and service unit to address student concerns and inquiries in an effective and timely manner. TSU also implemented new enrollment management software. However, since our work ended, the HERO has continued to receive complaints from TSU students regarding scholarships, account balances, and their housing. From December the 1st through February the 3rd, 15 TSU students contacted the HERO for assistance. 14 of those students had concerns about their account balances. And many of these concerns were time sensitive because the spring 23 semester was beginning and TSU was starting to purge schedules due to outstanding account balances. Overall, timely and clear responses and communications to parents and students should be a part of the university's efforts going forward. We also noted inconsistencies in testimony. For example, in 2021, TSU officials stated that their request to lease one hotel was for a one-time request for one semester. But in July of 22, TSU requested to lease 11 hotels. Another example is that TSU said no freshmen would be housed in hotels, but based on the information provided by TSU, 250 of the 881 students in the hotels were freshmen. Now I'll turn it over to Donovan to cover our second key conclusion.
Donovan Patterson, Comptroller's Office. Our second key conclusion is that TSU's lack of planning and management, especially regarding scholarship practices, exacerbated the university's existing housing problem. Several factors had a part in the record enrollment at TSU and the housing shortage. The TSU president has cited the national attention received by TSU, good publicity, and the development of strategic corporate partnerships. Another factor is what has been referred to as an HBCU renaissance, which refers to increased interest in and higher enrollment at HBCUs in recent years. High rental prices in the national housing market have also played a role, and TSU administrators have cited the real estate market in Nashville as the reason for increasing numbers of TSU upperclassmen requesting on-campus housing. TSU officials have also cited the university's increased yield rate. Given these factors, careful planning and management of the drivers of increased enrollment under the university's control have grown increasingly important. But we found TSU's lack of planning and management, especially regarding scholarship practices, exacerbated the university's housing problem. When we look back at student demand for housing at TSU since 2017, we see that demand has exceeded supply almost every year over that period. When you compare the blue bars, which are TSU's housing capacity, to the red bars, which are the number of students TSU had to house each year, it's clear that they have consistently exceeded their housing capacity since 2017, especially in 2022. And at a time when record enrollment and student demand for housing had already created a housing shortage at the university, TSU management conducted an extensive recruiting campaign and more than quadrupled their scholarship budget, raising the total amount budgeted for scholarships from $5.2 million to $28.3 million for the 22-23 academic year. To put this in perspective, the amount budgeted for 22-23 is equivalent to the total amount budgeted for scholarships for the previous 4 years combined. TSU began making these scholarship offers in September 2021 at a time when the university was leasing one hotel and an apartment complex to cope with its existing housing shortage. Approximately 3/4 of these scholarships were full cost at guaranteed housing. In addition, TSU management did not inform the TSU board of the significant increase in the scholarship budget in a timely manner. The delay gave the board insufficient time to evaluate the effects of an increase of this magnitude on enrollment and the university's existing housing problem. TSU management did not present a significant increase in the university scholarship budget to the TSU board until almost 1 year after the scholarships were offered to students. The figure for scholarships included in the 22-23 budget presented to the board in July of 2022 was $6.4 million. The $28.3 million budgeted for scholarships was not presented to the board until October, and the board did not approve it until November, 1 month before the completion of the fall 2022 semester. When TSU came before state officials in 2022 seeking to lease hotels, there were questions about the timeline of events. When, for example, did TSU realize enrollment levels were going to require multiple hotels? This is a question we aim to answer with our review. In March of 2022, there were significant indicators of an increase in enrollment, such as the 130% increase in applications received and the 210% increase in net admitted students. And by the end of April, the number of housing applications had increased 217% over the prior year, signaling that housing demands would be at an unprecedented level. However, the search for overflow housing did not begin until the end of May, with the 11 hotel leases being presented to the TSSBA in late July. And now we will have Russell Moore present our third key conclusion.
Russell Moore, Comptroller's Office. Our third key conclusion is that the university's housing problem is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. As of October of last year, the university's on-campus housing capacity was 3,680 beds. This current housing capacity of 3,680 beds is below TSU's estimated need for this spring and also for the coming fall semester. For spring 2023, TSU estimated needing 4,360 beds. And for the fall, the estimate is 4,800 beds. TSU board members have stated that leasing hotels is not the ideal option, but they believe leasing will continue at least through this coming fall semester. TSU officials plan to construct 2 new residence halls in the future. These 2 new halls will add 1,000 beds, raising the number of beds on campus to 4,680. However, TSU has identified 4 existing residence halls that may need to be demolished. These 4 halls have reached the end of their useful lives. The oldest one was built in 1951, and the other 3 were built in the 1960s. These 4 residence halls represent roughly 41% of TSU's current on-campus inventory of beds. Demolishing these 4 residence halls while building the 2 new residence halls yields a net reduction of approximately 500 beds. Assuming student demand for on-campus housing at least holds steady, TSU will likely require off-campus leases for the foreseeable future. TSU's current housing problem leaves the university with limited ability to adequately respond to unforeseen events. Think about a fire at a residence hall or the discovery of mold at a residence hall. Also, if a higher number of students than anticipated remain enrolled at the university, demand for student housing could be higher than expected, and TSU's housing problem could worsen. TSU is taking some steps to respond to the current housing problem. The university has indicated it plans to limit the number of new students this coming fall semester to 2,600. The university plans to provide housing for 1,600 of those 2,600 new students. TSU's assumption is the other 1,000 new students will not need university-provided housing. TSU also plans to award fewer full-cost scholarships, which include guaranteed housing, in the future, among other changes. Additionally, the TSU Board of Trustees has established a housing committee to focus on easing the university's housing pressures. So to recap our 3 key conclusions. Number one, TSU has repeatedly fallen short of sound fiscal practices, adequate documentation, and responsive communications to concerned parents and students. And there have been repeated inconsistencies between testimony given by TSU officials and actions later carried out. Number two, TSU's lack of planning and management, especially regarding scholarship practices, exacerbated the university's existing housing problem. And number three, the university's housing problem is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. We will now present our policy considerations, which range from changes to TSU's Board of Trustees to enhanced reporting from TSU. One option for the General Assembly is to place TSU under the authority of the Tennessee Board of Regents, rescinding TSU's status as a locally governed institution for a period of time. This could be done in at least two ways. Number one, vacating the current TSU Board of Trustees and placing all operations under the authority of TBR, or assigning authority over TSU operations to TBR while retaining the TSU Board of Trustees, but in an advisory capacity. This could be the current board or a new board. At some point, the General Assembly could consider returning authority back to the TSU Board of Trustees once certain conditions are met. Another option is for the General Assembly to vacate and restructure the TSU Board of Trustees, but not place authority over TSU operations under TBR. Or the General Assembly could leave the current board and TSU management in place, but mandate that TSU submit an annual scholarship plan and monthly scholarship reports, housing application data, and enrollment application data on a monthly basis, and projected enrollment classification data for the coming fall semester on November 1st of each year. Enrollment classification data would include things like the number of out-of-state students, students living on campus, students living off campus in TSU-provided housing, the number of online-only students, and other information. This data could be submitted to various parties, including state legislators, the Tennessee State School Bond Authority, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, the Tennessee Board of Regents, and others. We list possible recipients in the report. The basic idea here is that regular reporting by TSU will keep state officials and others apprised of scholarship, housing, and enrollment trends at the university. Some of our policy considerations are directed to the TSU Board of Trustees. The TSU Board of Trustees could replace current TSU management. The TSU Board of Trustees should consider implementing a policy requiring the board's approval of significant financial and budget changes, especially concerning scholarships. Other policy considerations are directed to TSU management, whether the current management or a new management team. TSU management should consider the recruitment and retention of the capital projects manager position to be a top priority, and this hire should be confirmed by the TSU Board of Regents. As of January 31st of this year, our understanding is that this position was vacant. TSU management should consider adding an additional new residence hall to eliminate the expected on-campus bed deficit, especially considering there are 4 residence halls identified for demolition in the future. TSU management should also consider improving its responsiveness to communications received from parents and students, revising what approvals are needed for fund transfers to the university plant fund accounts, and ensuring there is proper documentation attached to any accounting entries, and properly documenting scholarship award decisions through a multiple-step approval process. Mr. Chairman and members, that concludes my portion of this morning's presentation. I will now turn things back over to Comptroller Mumpower for some closing remarks.
Comptroller, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. And let me take a moment again to to thank Nicole and Donovan and Russell and the others who worked on the campus over the past several months. They have been dedicated. They have worked hard. They have sometimes been frustrated because of inconsistent information provided by management about key actions and decisions. But Mr. Chairman and members, as we're here today in a sunset hearing regarding specifically the Board of Trustees, there are several key questions to ask yourselves. The report has provided you with at least 12 policy considerations, some as serious as vacating the Board of Trustees and replacing the university's management, while others call for measures that would simply bring more accountability. Now, while these are offered to you as considerations, in my view, many of these are common sense measures that could occur to help with the university in the future. Now, one thing that we can say for sure as we're gathered here today is that the issues faced aren't going to go away anytime soon. The housing problem is going to continue for some time, and the state will be responsible for making sure the campus has adequate facilities. Now, Mr. Chairman and members, as you're here in this hearing today, let's go over something important for you, and that is the structure that TSU is governed under. The university is an LGI, a locally governed institution. Now, the way that works, of course, as I hope you know, is that the governor nominates persons for trustee, the job of trustee. Those people nominated by the governor then come before you as a legislature where you interview them and you can choose to confirm them. And what that means is they represent you. And as you look back at some of the issues described today, and really one thing that we learned when we did this presentation is the housing issue that we've discussed today is just a symptom of a larger management issue. And as you look back at some of the issues that you've heard about today, it is hard to say that the trustees have been exhibiting their full fiduciary responsibilities. While I truly believe the men and women on the Board of Trustees have a heart for the university and mean very well, I think, just as I heard Lieutenant Governor McNally say last week, we developed a situation where the management runs the Board of Trustees instead of the Board of Trustees running the university. Now, members, I know some of these members of the Board of Trustees are here today, and you may want to talk to them, but let me share with you something that happened. I told you that we first presented this information last week. After that hearing, in the comptroller's office, our switchboard lit up. And I want to share with you a story that came to us right after our report last Thursday. We had a high school representative in Ohio call us. And at this high school in Ohio, they actually have a staff member whose job is to help make sure their high school's graduates succeed in college. They have had a history of sending students and encouraging students to attend Tennessee State University. Now, last October, just a few months ago, this high school representative came to Nashville to visit some of the students who currently attend the university. She explained, just as we have alluded to in our report, that one of the students in particular had been offered one of these scholarships during her senior year of high school. And at the time she was offered the scholarship, it was well communicated that her high school GPA was 2.7, which is not high enough to qualify for the scholarship received. That student, nonetheless, was enrolled in Tennessee State University last fall. Now, by October, as we've heard again and again through calls to our Higher Education Resource Officer office, that scholarship had not been paid. And so this high school representative, while they were down here, went to the financial aid office to find out why. They were told, perhaps not surprisingly, that the student actually never qualified for the scholarship because her high school GPA was not 3.0, although documentably, TSU had been aware of this when they awarded the scholarship. The student, of course, was in tears because she had based her college decision on the scholarship that was offered but never delivered. Now, the high school representative who works with universities across the nation said, and I'm quoting right here from her report that came last Thursday, "I have never experienced a situation like this. To me, this error seems borderline fraudulent. The mistake on the university's part left the student feeling distressed, and with no attempts to take responsibility for the glaring mistake." You know, Mr. Chairman and members, last Thursday in the hearing before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee, I think a remark was made that this report was perhaps not based on fact, but the irrefutable fact is that on a day-to-day basis, the university is not a well-run organization. Now, anecdotally, a week ago today, Comptroller Emeritus Wilson and I happened to be together, and we had a trustee call and say, yes, there are many issues that need to be addressed, but we don't think there need to be any changes to the board. We don't think there need to be any changes to management, but we promise everything else is going to change. That just doesn't bear common sense. You know, you think about the quadrupling of the scholarship budget that we talked about, and in the hearing last Thursday, it was said that decision was made through a series of one-on-one phone calls, trustee to trustee. But members, as you know, it would have been impossible for the trustees to completely in the round explore the ramifications of quadrupling a budget like that, the ramifications it would have for student housing and the student experience. I mean, members, as you know, as you've seen from pictures in the report, students are being housed in hotels on Dickerson Pike, Trinity Lane, out by Opryland, in a church-owned facility near the campus. Is this the kind of experience the trustees want these students to have when they come to our university? Now, the primary reason the university exists is certainly for the welfare of its students. We've talked to a lot of people about this report, and one thing that I have to say is that while we have heard a lot of comments about perpetuating the board, we have heard a lot of comments about perpetuating the management, we have not heard any loud call, for the most part, about the welfare of the students. And so Tennessee State University is absolutely a wonderful place with wonderful students, wonderful alumni, faculty, and staff. And again, as I started, let me end by saying we want this university to be successful. We want it to grow and prosper. And I know that it can do that, but as is important to this hearing today, in order for that to happen, the trustees, who you have confirmed, need to be acting in their full fiduciary responsibility. Thank you for allowing us to present this information to you today. We'll be happy to move forward in any manner you see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller, and to your staff. We thank you so much. Are there any questions to the Comptroller from the committee? No questions from the committee to the Comptroller. Thank you, sir, for your presentation. And I will back up. One thing I did miss and was notified of, I think Mr. Eddie George is in the building. Is Eddie George here? Thank you, Mr. Eddie George, for being here. Appreciate that. I think he used to play football or something. I don't know what he did, but anyway. Thank you. Seeing no comments or questions to the Comptroller, we'll move over to the Tennessee State University Board of Trustees, and I believe that we have Dr. Cole to represent them. If you will, please state your name and who you're with, and you are recognized, Dr. Cole.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I am Dr. Deborah Cole, Chair of the Board of Trustees for Tennessee State University. I again thank you for allowing me and members of this great university to come before you today. The following individuals are here with me also. If you would please raise your hand as I call your name. Dr. Obie McKenzie, a member of the Board of Trustees, a member of the Board's Special Committee on Housing, and member of the Audit Committee. Dr. Glenda Glover, President of Tennessee State University. Mr. Douglas Allen, Vice President for Business and Finance. Other trustees present are Trustee Andre Johnson, Trustee Bill Johnson, who is our faculty trustee, Trustee Richard Lewis, Trustee Pam Martin, Trustee Van Pinnock, Trustee Joseph Walker, and Mr. Sean Wimberly, our student trustee. Thank you. I am here on behalf of the Board of Trustees to present information in response to the Comptroller's special report and to request the renewal of the TSU Board of Trustees. The TSU Board, President Glover, and the TSU administration take the concerns raised in the Comptroller's report seriously and have taken measures and will take additional substantive measures to ensure these issues are addressed and corrected. The board is committed to actively engaging in our own enhanced oversight of activities and working closely with TSU management to ensure TSU's effective operations and fiscal practices. Just a few comments on my background. I'm a proud two-time graduate of TSU with honors. I have served on the FDIC Advisory Board, 2 national nonprofit boards, a number of local nonprofit boards, Citizens Banks Board. I was TSAC's Audit Committee Chair and later invited to join the committee with THEC, but could not do so at that time, as well as other local boards. Based on my prior audit experience with a national CPA firm, I appreciate and understand the efforts used to develop an audit report. I served as president of Citizens Bank in excess of 20 years and currently serve as Associate Dean of Finance for a local private university. Appointed to the Board of Governors by Governor Haslam, Board of Trustees for TSU by Governor Haslam, and reappointed by Governor Lee with approval of the legislature. I have served 6 years, with 2 being chair, and I sincerely appreciate your confirmation of the recommendation. I believe the board has practiced effective oversight and noted by the nationally recognized AGB consultant. I also believe that every challenge, there is an opportunity, and I recognize that the board needs to elevate its oversight, enhance its engagement with the TSU administration in key areas of the institution, hold management accountable for outcomes, and ensure TSU has a talented and sufficient number of staff to increase its level of operation. The recent communication with a consultant with the Association of Governing Boards, Ms. Carol Cartwright, has been a very thorough process. I met Ms. Cartwright a number of years ago when THEC retained her to orient the new LGI boards. As a board member, I've been closely engaged in many issues confronting the institution, including prior audit report findings, which the institution has reduced those from 7 to 3, and they've taken action to correct the remaining deficiencies, which involve housing, enrollment, and scholarships. I know that this will show during the outcome of the 6/30/21 audit that is currently being conducted. It has been my responsibility to lead board and audit committee discussions regarding prior audit findings and the actions TSU administration has taken to correct those issues. I have been able to experience the evolution and development of TSU under Dr. Glover's leadership, including enrollment. We are proud of TSU's enrollment growth after declining or stagnant enrollment for several years. Increased academic profile of students coming to the institution, significant increase in corporate support, including donations, internship, employment opportunities, and the $1 Million Club, exceptional increase in grants and research, expanded academic programs leading to increased marketability of students, and renewal of the 10-year accreditation. The board's support for Dr. Glover is based on her performance in these and other areas. Dr. Glover has been a role model and mentor for thousands of young Black girls and women across the country and is considered a HBCU guru to other colleges and universities. I have learned a lot by going through the Comptroller's review process. I studied this report in detail more than just once. I am committed to working closely with the President to continue to hold her and administration accountable for enhancing its practice, policies, and documentation. I would now like to address the policy considerations as it relates to the Board of Trustees. The placement of the Board of Trustees under the TBR's authority or the reconstructing of the board would not only serve to be not in the best interest of Tennessee State University, but it also would not be in the best interest of the students at Tennessee State University. We believe that TSU students are best served by continuing to have the board that is dedicated exclusively to their success and the institution's mission and possesses the institutional knowledge to help inform key decisions affecting TSU. The board has taken seriously its oversight responsibilities. While the board has engaged in serious oversight, the board has recognized the need for growth and evolution in this area. Thus, the board has worked more closely with the TSU administration and has overcome both previously and very recent 3-unit-based reorganizations at the university to enhance the operations and efficient delivery of services. These reorganizations have been implicated and impacted the Financial Aid Office, Enrollment Management, Housing, and Business and Finance Division, and resulted in structural changes and significant employment terminations and/or personnel realignments. To further enhance its oversight in the area of housing, I appointed in fall of '22 a special committee on housing to evaluate the status and condition of the university's housing, to refine the development of a housing plan, including its short-term, mid-term, and long-term housing needs and options. Reports will be made to the entire board at the regular scheduled board meeting. The board will examine its committee structure to ensure that appropriate number and focus of its committee with the possible addition of committees. And I want to make note that I attend each and every committee meeting, whether I'm a part of that committee or not. The board has also recently procured the services of Ms. Carol Cartwright, a consultant with the National Association of Governing Boards of Universities and Colleges, the premier organization for governing boards in higher education, as I mentioned earlier. Ms. Cartwright, through her reputation and work with AGB, was previously retained by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission in 2016 to meet and provide orientation for all the newly formed boards of locally governed institutions, not just TSU, University of Memphis, MTSU, East Tennessee State, Austin Peay, etc. After conducting a review of the board's operations, including a review of board bylaws and policies, conducting interviews with all the board members, reviewing a sampling of board and board committee minutes, and reviewing several hours of board and board committee meetings, Ms. Cartwright concluded that the TSU Board of Trustees is operating effectively and in alignment with good governance practices. The oversight is presented on the first chart. Ms. Cartwright recognizes, and I agree, and let me repeat, I agree, that all governing boards can improve their overall effectiveness, and she will be working with the board, including with the self-assessment process to enhance the board's effectiveness. As it relates to annual scholarships, the board will ensure that the TSU administration provides an annual scholarship plan to the board and present reports at its regular meetings pertaining to the number and value of all scholarships offered and the number of signed scholarship acceptance offers. I will also ensure that TSU provides a copy of the annual scholarship plan to the Tennessee Higher Education Committee for an agreed-upon period of time. As it relates to housing application data and enrollment application data, TSU provided housing data, including housing application data in the fall of '22. At the request of the State Building Commission, the TSU management is prepared housing application enrollment data to the Board of Trustees, including at its March, June, and September meetings it would be presented. TSU is also prepared to provide a copy of the housing and enrollment application data to THEC for an agreed-upon period of time and to the State Building Commission upon request. The enrollment classification data. As chair, I will ensure that TSU provides additional and appropriate enrollment classification data to the TSU Board of Trustees, including at its March, June, and September meetings. As to management, Mr. Mumpower, I want to thank you for taking my call that day that I did call your office. Comptroller Mumpower mentioned in his report Thursday and today that he spoke with a member of the board, I was the member, and that we were not willing to make replacements in management. First, I must say that I gave Comptroller Mumpower a stance on a single position and not overall positions of management as a whole. I appreciate Comptroller Mumpower taking that time to speak with me, and I should also have made him aware, which I did not at that time, but I should also have made him aware of the following. Number one, my reputation is extremely important to me, and I intend on maintaining the credibility I have in this community. The board takes its personnel-related authority seriously. The board will continue to evaluate the president and engage in active discussions regarding TSU's overall management at the university. This includes the board's recent work with President Glover in implementing the reorganization of key units, including enrollment management, housing, and business units. What I definitely should have stressed is there will be an additional personnel changes, including the hiring of a chief operating officer, a vice president for enrollment to oversee the enrollment management, and filling the construction management director position. As board chair, I will request there be an evaluation of all positions, and depending on the results, individuals may move up, down, in, or out. That is based on the results of that evaluation. So thank you, Comptroller, for allowing me to give additional details on that conversation that I did have with you. Financial and budgeting changes. I plan to recommend to the board the implementation of a policy governing prior approval of specified financial and budget changes, including scholarships based on a set threshold amount. Recruitment and retention of a candidate to fill the university's vacant capital projects manager. The board and university agree with the comptroller that filling this vacant position is most critical to the university, and it remains a top priority of the university. The university has conducted 2 searches for this position, but has not yet located the right candidate. The university is expanding its search efforts and working expeditiously to select and retain someone of qualified stance to fill this critically important position on a very timely basis. New residence hall. TSU concurs with the comptroller in adding 2 additional new residence halls to its current request to construct 2 other residence halls. The additional residence halls are a critical part to ensure TSU's future success. I will now address communications with parents and students. The board addressed this challenge prior to the report of the comptroller's office, and we take this very seriously. We engaged in active discussions with President Glover and the TSU management about the necessity for the university to improve its responsiveness to communications received from parents and students. The Tennessee State University management has responded and undertaken significant measures to enhance its communication and responsiveness to the students and the parents. TSU established an Office of Customer Relations, which will be staffed by an assistant vice president and other team members who will work directly with students and parents on scholarships, housing, and enrollment-related concerns. Also, I ask you, Mr. Chairman, and other members of this committee, to please consider that the number of complaints, while we want none, must be viewed in context with the number of students. Mr. Chairman, also TSU has created a student assist program to help work directly with students and parents and coordinate student-related issues among internal staff. We need time for this program to work. TSU has recently rolled out a new software program, as mentioned by one of the representatives from the office, which would aid internal staff and students in addressing enrollment management related matters by providing information on documents, actions that still need to be taken by a student, and the status of a student's application, which will be available immediately. Staff will work closely with the Higher Education Resource Officer in the handling and reduction of those complaints. We know that without students, there is no TSU. As it relates to transfer of funds, I have requested that President Glover and Vice President Allen draft and present to the board at its next meeting a proposed policy governing required approvals for transfers of funds in and out of the plant fund and ensure proper documentation. With my background, I understand the need for proper documentation. Scholarship award decisions are important, and the following action will be taken. We recognize that with the record yield, it had a major impact on the need to increase the scholarship budget. President Glover has been asked to have the proper department implement appropriate measures to document when a scholarship is awarded based on meeting the scholarship's minimum GPA requirement or demonstrated financial need, and to utilize an appropriate multiple-step approval process as part of the measures. Properly identifying whether that scholarship is based on need or GPA, I think would have been critical to the outcome of the results of the Comptroller's report. I have stressed that it is an imperative that all files are properly documented as it relates to the scholarship decisions and transactions. I also requested President Glover to provide a report to the board on the measures implemented with respect to this item at our next board meeting. In conclusion, the Board of Trustees is committed to the success of Tennessee State University and its students. We, as the Board of Trustees, care about Tennessee State University and its students. I sincerely appreciate you hearing me today. And now I ask President Glover to discuss 3 specific areas of primary concern in the Comptroller's report. She will be followed by Trustee McKenzie, Dr. Obie McKenzie, and we will then be more than glad to address any questions that you may have. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Dr. Glover. Just recognize yourself, please.
Thank you. I'm Glenda Glover. I serve as president of Tennessee State University. Chairman Carr, thank you, and members of the committee for this opportunity. I wholeheartedly agree with the board chair Cole and concur with the corrective actions that she has presented. We understand the concerns expressed by the comptroller and members of the legislature. This morning, I want to specifically and briefly address 3 primary areas of concern highlighted in the comptroller's report. They pertain 1, to TSU finances, 2, enrollment/scholarships, and 3, housing. First, concern finances. We are proud to share that TSU is in a better position now than it has ever been in our 111-year history. We're in a better financial position, a better academic position. This is good for the university and it's excellent for our students. I will start with the financial statement audit and the audit findings. First, I emphasize, this is the 2021, June 3rd, 2021 audit. I emphasize we received a clean audit opinion, as the comptroller can agree because they have the audit report. That means the financial statements are presented fairly. Yes, we had 3 audit findings, meaning though the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, there are areas we need to improve. Bank reconciliation is one. But the good news is we've corrected those findings, and the bank statements have all been reconciled. Due to the timing of the financial statement audit that's performed by the Comptroller's Office from the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021, they have not had the opportunity to complete a subsequent financial audit, not yet. So for accreditation purposes for TSU, we had to submit an update. So we engaged a CPA firm, and the Comptroller's Office is aware of this. The CPA firm concluded that 3 audit findings have all been corrected. This was not even asked for in the comptroller's review, as they simply looked at the June 30, 21 audit and made comments from that. They did cut and paste from that audit and not even look at a single shred of evidence to come to the conclusion they presented to you today. So had they simply looked at it, or even asked to look at it, they would have seen that those bank reconciliations had been reconciled and that those audit findings had been completed. The three on the screen are as follows. Procedures for preparing and reviewing university bank reconciliation. The CPA firm says you're in compliance, deficiency corrected. The second finding, the university bank reconciliations. The CPA firm concluded in compliance, deficiency corrected. The third finding, policies and procedures for the collection of accounts receivable. The CPA firm concluded in compliance, deficiency corrected. Now, unfortunately, we have 5 to 7 years of unreconciled bank statements, as I explained in earlier reports. We acknowledge that. We own that. It's not good. But we have now corrected it. We have incorporated substantive measures to ensure that it never happens again. As president of TSU, I take very seriously the findings and observations reflected in the audit report. And I'm working internally, and I have worked with our governing board to take actions to address the findings contained in that report. The Board of Trustees adopted a resolution back in 2020 directing the university to take all appropriate measures to correct the deficiencies and report back to the board on a regular basis the implemented measures, and we did. Here's what we did. We responded to the board's directive by taking immediate and impactful measures, including procedural changes, modifying the organizational structure, and implementing personnel changes that were necessary to address and correct the known deficiencies in the fiscal management and financial reporting and the general operational areas. Some of the impactful measures include, first, staffing, personnel, and structural changes. We have a more skilled and experienced staff, a staff of 5 CPAs, including a comptroller and a VP of finance. We've implemented training of this staff, a clear delineation of responsibilities. We have increased focus on timely and accurate bank reconciliation. We have the assistance from an external CPA firm. We have training of accounting and finance personnel. We're addressing the SAC-CLC-related concerns, and the board engagement in fiscal management and financial reporting is at the highest level. TSU management has taken these important measures to ensure that the staff preparing or reviewing the financial statements have the adequate knowledge of governmental accounting and reporting requirements to properly perform these responsibilities. This upgraded staff and enhanced procedures are to reduce these audit findings and to ensure this never happens again. The action taken. To further give you assurance, we are committed to providing THEC monthly financial information and quarterly reports for a set period of time as determined by the board. These will include, among other things, copies of the bank statement reconciliation to show that we're on top of it. Again, we are now current, and more importantly, you'll be able to see these that we're in the best financial position ever. TSU is strong financially. We know that we have to work hard to eliminate any contrary perception and to show that TSU is strong financially. Chairman Reagan and I talked about perception versus reality. So we're working hard to rid that negative perception that TSU is not in a strong financial position, because we are. We have a healthy balance sheet. Our composite financial index, which measures the financial strength of public institutions, is above average. The average is 3.0. We're at 3.4. TSU has never defaulted on any of its debt obligations. We've never been late on a debt payment. We've never had to have any of our state appropriations ever intercepted to pay for debt. Our reserve is good, with $52.7 million in reserve. From the last sunset review, we've addressed the primary area of concern, which is the financial statements and related principles. We have enhanced the policies, the bank recs, upgraded the staff. We've reduced the elimination of the audit findings. Now let's move to scholarships. Let's now move to scholarships and enrollment. The second concern is that the number of scholarships given, as well as the increase in the number of scholarships in the budget. The members of the TSU Board of Trustees and the management of TSU have reviewed the comptroller's report And we've committed to incorporate some of the considerations related to scholarships, as Chair Cole discussed. I want to clear up something about scholarships. I put the chart up. It's reported that scholarships increased from $6 million to $28 million. This chart presents a more accurate picture of the scholarship budget. The scholarship dollars come from four sources as shown in the chart. They come from tuition fees, they come from the TSU Foundation, they come from CARES Fund, they came last year from CARES Funds, they come from auxiliary funds. What the comptroller reported was that only the tuition and fees of 6.4 was presented to the bodies. 6.4 was only the amount from tuition and fees. It was not the total amount of scholarships. There were CARES funds of another 6.4, meaning that was the funds that came from the federal government there was an influx of funding to all universities, and as well as some additional funds of HBCUs. Then there were some funds we have from auxiliary funds. It came from food services and those type of entities. And then the foundation. Then we went back and got another $1 million from the TSU Foundation. So we started with $6.4 million. We increased in the tuition fees, that part of the budget. We increased by another 9.7 for a total of 16.1, which is a lot, but it's not out of line with the other universities on a percentage basis. So we added $10.7 million more to get $28.3 million. So I was saying, had they looked at this as we were hoping they would have seen this. But instead, they did not even care to do this. And that was a problem for us. So we decided to show you ourselves the breakdown of the scholarship fund. $6.4 million from tuition and fees, totaling $16 million after we made a transfer of only $9.7 million, not the $28 million or $22 million that was presented. So the total, yes, is $28.3 million, but it didn't just come from that one line item as was presented to you. So, having said that, now I want to know it's critically important for us to emphasize that we increased the funding in scholarships in response to the students' demonstrated need in attending TSU. The interest in coming to TSU was there. So to the extent that it caused confusion, we apologize for that confusion. It wasn't intended to be confusing. We were trying to accommodate the students. So I want to point out there's just a record level of interest in applications. The yield that we had expected to be 30% based on past models of the rolling 5 years, we presented ours at 30% again. But because of the HBCU Renaissance, all the things that's going on, wanting to come to TSU, it became 41%. That's just not simply 11 more percent. It is over a third more students want to come to TSU. So we adjusted our scholarship budget. No, we didn't just adjust the budget in advance to get more students. We didn't engage in any new or different practices. We didn't look to establish a $28 million fund. This was an HBCU Renaissance. Students returned to HBCUs and students wanting to come to TSU. And we are so proud of them. We hope you are too, that students actually want to come to your one HBCU public institution in your state. There are many other students which are turned down for scholarships because we couldn't support the funds in our revised budget. So we ensured that the funds in the budget came from non-Tennessee taxpayer dollars. We met that increase by using non-taxpayer dollars. As more students came, there was more revenue and fees, so we used that we deferred some purchase of things. It's exactly like if you have a line item in your budget that says printing for so much, posters for so much. If there's money left over in the postage budget, you can transfer that to the printing line item. It's not a new budget change. It's a line item difference that we're talking about. So I want to add that we're proud of the profile of the students we have been able to attract. I would like to point out also the GPA of our incoming first-year class has steadily increased. It was 2.8 GPA 5 or 6 years ago. It's now at 3.999 or 3.4. So we received approval from our board to raise our academic standards. We took a bit of a hit for it with a small decline in enrollment. Due to our recruitment efforts of talented students, we've been able to reverse that with students that have higher academic credentials, because we all know that quality attracts quality. But here's what we're willing to do going forward. We will ensure that the board is made aware and will approve the scholarship-related budget items, and we will have better communication with the students. Every letter to students will have greater clarity. I'm working with the board chair to determine a threshold amount over which we will need to obtain board approval when it comes to scholarships. We will have those discussions on these matters at the March 16 board meeting. We will update the scholarship plan for our board. We will send it to THAC, the scholarship reports, each month in specified months. Let's finally go to housing. First, I am pleased to share that we do not have a housing crisis this semester. This second semester was smooth. There was no housing crisis, and we are really pleased about that. While we presented information based on data related, we presented information based on the data at the time. There was no conflict in testimony. It was based on what we had at the time. As it was updated, we presented you with the updated information. We made it clear that we have 2 hotels for the fall. That's down from 5, along with the House of God. This plan is consistent with the other institutions, the university in this state, that are also struggling with that housing demand. Yes, we did get more students than we had anticipated, but the yield affects that. We had more of a yield, 41% instead of 31%. But I can assure you, it was not a lack of management or lack of planning. We have better communications with students, but it's not a lack of planning. As soon as we noticed that we had a high yield of students, we immediately set to work on a plan in action to get the students housed. We brought forth some recommendations that were all denied by various legislators. They were all denied. So we went back and regrouped and said, what can we do to keep these students from going home? Because we know that when students come to us asking us, juniors and seniors, please don't allow me to go home, I don't have anywhere to stay. Now, we could have said, I'm sorry, but that's not who we are. We're here to assist students. We know that if students go back home, the chances of them coming back is almost 0. That's what the literature shows. This is not Glenda Glover speaking. That's what the literature shows. When our students go home, they don't come back. So we're guilty of something else. We're guilty of caring too much for our students to let them go home and not return to higher education, period. It was our sound financial footing that allowed us to correct the problem and ensure this never happens again. If we get, and we have heard you. That's what I want you to know. We have heard you. When you say you don't want to have that, we shouldn't have that many students, we've heard you. So what we're going to do is tighten up our procedures even more. We're going to manage enrollment while focusing on our housing capacity. We will align our enrollment to our housing capacity. Notwithstanding, there'll be some students who want to live off campus. There are others who will be online. Also, between the months of September and November, we will send housing reports to THAC each month, like we do now to the State Building Commission. We've been preparing State Building Commission with reports as they requested. The only thing we have to work on now is more housing, and we're working on that on a daily basis. So we ask you not to judge us by that one semester. There was almost an anomaly last fall about the strength that we possess. We've established significantly more corporate and business relationships. We've increased fundraising activities, particularly from our corporate donors. We have 5 new companies that gave TSU $1 million in the last 2 years, and several others that contributed $500,000. We've doubled our endowment from $45 million when I came to TSU to $96 million now, and at one point it reached over $100 million. Our research and grant funding has hit a record high of over $70 million, up $30 million since our early years of my tenure, and we'll surpass that this fiscal year. TSU has received a national profile and is a standard setter in higher education. Our student profile has been elevated. We raised admission standards. When I arrived at TSU, a student could have a 2.25 or a 19 on ACT and get admitted, meaning a student could conceivably achieve a 19 on ACT and have a 1.9 GPA and will still meet the standards. So we changed that to a 2.5 GPA and a 19. This is not where we want to end up. We're continuing to raise the profile, looking at increasing admission standards again. Again, quality attracts quality. The GPA of our incoming first-year class is up. The quality of our faculty is on par with that of any institution. The academic programs have been responsive to the needs of an ever-changing market and society. Our national research status was elevated first to R3 status in my early years, then to R2 status, meaning we engage in high research activity. We have a plan in place now to take us to R1. our alumni engaged, and continue to be invested in the success of their alma mater. So TSU is solid. Our leadership and our board are working hard to increase our operation effectiveness. In lieu of these accomplishments, I could not be prouder to serve as president of this great institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glover. And I believe we have one more presenter today. If you will just recognize yourself and turn your microphone on, please.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? My name is Obie McKenzie, born in McKenzie, Tennessee. When Governor Haslam flew to New York to ask me to come back home to serve as a trustee on my beloved Tennessee State University, I was proud and I came running. I was born 78 years ago in a cotton town in West Tennessee. I'm a proud Tennessean and a proud graduate of Tennessee State University. Back in those days, we were called Tennessee Agricultural and Industrial State University. I was proud then, and I was proud then, and I'm proud now. I have gone from a bunk bed on Jefferson Street to the boardroom of some of the most prominent financial institutions in these United States and perhaps the world. I'm a graduate of Harvard Graduate School of Business with an earned MBA in finance. I've taught finance at Harvard to students, which included not just a financial education, but an ethical education as well. I am a recipient of an honorary doctorate in commercial science from the University of Hartford. And I'm proud to say that I am a minister of the gospel according to Jesus Christ. And when I got up this morning, I prayed that the Lord would give me the right words to say that would not just resonate with your head, but would resonate with your heart. I came back from New Jersey to ask you not to put a stain on my legacy. I left here to be a responsible citizen, and I came home to continue that legacy. My Bible tells me, trust God and do good. And that is what I have tried to do as a trustee of Tennessee State University. I am proud to say that I have served on many boards. I retired from BlackRock 4 years ago as a member of the Human Capital Committee for a $10 trillion organization. Fiduciary education, financial responsibility, intelligence, preparation are part of my professional DNA. I brought that to the board of Tennessee State University, and I continue that this day. I have served on this board for 6 years. I'm proud to say that you might find a board just as good, but you won't find a board any better. I'll say it again.
You might find a board just as good, but you won't find a board any better. And I say that as an experienced board member of several prominent boards throughout these United States. Served on the New York Theological Board. I serve now on the board of Poland Capital, a $100 billion equity asset management firm in Boca Raton. I serve on the board of Exponents, a $15 billion institutional asset management firm in Philadelphia. And I could go on, but I say that only to give you context for my comments. Housing shortages is a national problem, and for those of you who are willing to push a Google button and find out, it is a problem, a crisis, that is being dealt with by colleges and universities across these United States. Rising urban costs in cities like Nashville and others across the land have created a very, very difficult problem that we all face, and that is providing adequate housing at reasonable prices that the middle class can afford, and certainly not the poor, can afford to send their students and pay for that housing, at the same time pay for an education. But it is a national problem that we all face. It's not just Tennessee State University. And I will say, if I might, that we're grateful that we finally got the $250 million that we needed so badly, and we're grateful for that, and we thank you for having made that decision. If we'd had the money that we were due, perhaps our buildings wouldn't be falling down. Perhaps we wouldn't be putting our students in hotels if we just been treated a little more fairly and had the money that we were due to do that we know how to do. I'd like to address a solution. I hope this sunset, when I heard this was a sunset committee, I'm hoping it's a sunrise meeting. On the positive side of things, I came back here with a plan to deal with our housing problem. I've consulted the likes of Tony Girondelli. Some of you know him to be a very prominent realtor in town. It's going to take a marriage of public and private money to solve the housing problem at Tennessee State, and the housing problem, for that matter, at University of Tennessee, because they have a student housing problem as well. For those of you, again, who are willing to push the Google button and take a look at it, they have a housing problem. And housing is a national problem. We have commitments. I personally have talked to developers who are willing to come and partner with us to build more dormitory rooms and beds for our students. We have been in conversation with developing our land at our downtown campus. We were offered $60 million in partnership with a private developer here in Nashville who's well known to many of you. He offered us $60 million to partner with us and a lease, a long-term lease on the property to build dormitories. And he offered us $60 million up front for a lease which has cash flow on it So not only would we get $60 million up front to be put into our endowment and managed professionally by the likes of people with my kind of experience, but we would have cash flow associated with that from lease income to help support the infrastructure at Tennessee State. So we're currently in the process of monetizing the assets that you have so kindly allowed us to manage. We are also, as we speak today, in negotiations with a church with property that is adjacent to the university, with a private investor who has come to Tennessee to offer to buy that property, and then engage in a partnership with the university to, again, lease the land and develop a financial partnership with the university where our students can be housed. And I could go on and on. I have personally solicited the services of Turner Construction, who I'm sure you're familiar with McKissick and McKissick, who I'm sure you're familiar with prominent architectural firms, all of whom have come together as a team to help solve a long-term problem that's been being developed over a long period of time. Now, let me just say something about the board. I have never served on a board, and I've served on many boards, with more competent, well-educated, well-prepared, ethical people than I serve on right now at the board of Tennessee State. I've never served under the leadership of anybody finer, more caring, more committed than Dr. Glenda Glover. So I come before you. I'm not too proud to beg, as they say, and I ask you to not put a stain on our legacy by not allowing us to do what we are academically, professionally, ethically, prayerfully prepared to do as trustees of our university. And I thank you very much for the privilege, Mr. Chairman, the privilege of being able to come here and ask you and your fellow members to not put a stain on our legacy. And I thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir. We have heard from both sides now. We have heard the report from the comptroller. We've heard your concerns, and we have heard that your corrective measures and everything, and I believe the board has been meeting with that. And we have some other things that we must take care of after a while. I do have 6 people here on the public comment, and if they were here to address just the Board of Trustees for the Tennessee State University, we're glad to come in and give them about a minute to just tell us what they would like to tell us. If they can, the first one I have on the list is Charles H. Galbraith, Jr.
Galbraith Jr.
Sir, you're recognized. I'll give you 3 minutes, okay?
Okay. National Alumni Association President for Tennessee State University. Good morning, Chairman. Thank you for this opportunity to address you this morning. To members of the committee, Dr. Glover, the Board of Trustees, and of course, my Tennessee State University family. Again, my name is Charles H. Galbraith Jr. I am a 2004 graduate of Tennessee State University and currently the National Alumni Association president for this outstanding university. I appreciate this moment to advocate on behalf of the excellence of the blue, the excellence of the white, and of course, Tennessee's one public HBCU. I advocate on behalf of the reputation of my alma mater. I have become quite familiar with the comptroller's report and the issues presented. I do not minimize the challenges. However, I am confident in the current administration that they will continue to work and move forward with the university to move us into a better existence. We must maintain the governing entity with the autonomy to serve this specific needs that our legendary university has. We have seen TSU rise to a national level, one never seen before by this university. It's discouraging to see the university's momentum interrupted. The accomplishments of Tennessee State University are all the more impressive when one recalls that TSU has experienced decades of being underfunded. The issue of land grant funding must be considered when assessing the university's business affairs and overall management. The Tennessee State University Board of Trustees, Dr. Glenda Glover, and her administration should be able to lead without maneuvering the restraints of being underfunded. We must also be mindful of the stigma that could be attached to Tennessee State University following these proceedings. Disparaging labels and judgments could change the upward pointing trajectory of this university. It is unfortunate that during such a historic time in our university's history that there would be such an aggressive proposition to dismantle the governing board and university leadership. Support should be empowering, not punitive. Allow me to share one of my greatest fears. I fear the day when someone says, whatever happened to the school that was founded in 1912 in the land of golden sunshine? Whatever happened to the school that educated Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Levi Watkins Jr., Wilma Rudolph, Claire Phelps, Jesse Russell, Zerona Clayton, Dr. Bobby Jones, Dr. Glenda Glover, and so many other contributors to our global society?
Mr. Galbraith, your 3 minutes have expired, sir.
I ask that you consider the reputation of Tennessee State University and preserve our current structure. Set up TSU for success. Please do not set us back. I will forever be glad that I attended Tennessee State University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. The next on our list is Dr. Carolyn Tucker. Dr. Tucker, you are recognized.
Thank you so very much. Good morning to this august body of legislators. I'm Dr. Carolyn Baldwin Tucker. I received my BS degree from Tennessee State University in 1969, master's degree from Tennessee State University, the education specialist degree from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the PhD degree from Peabody College of Vanderbilt University in 1982. I am a lifelong educator, having served as a teacher, principal, central office administrator, former interim director of schools for Murfreesboro City Schools, and former visiting professor at Lipscomb University for 16 years. Currently, I'm a consultant with a nonprofit agency. In the land of golden sunshine, by the Cumberland's fertile shore, stands a school for greater service, one that I adore. I'm here today to speak on behalf of Tennessee State University, Dr. Glover, and the Board of Trustees. Steeped in the history of doing much with little has been the story of Tennessee State University. Resultant from Dr. Glover's leadership, however, Tennessee State University has soared to new heights of greatness. The endowment has increased, and university scholarships with regard to research grants have tremendously increased to record levels. The university's aristocrat of bands has soared to new heights, receiving 2 Grammy Awards. Now, regarding the comptroller's report, the first consideration under the Board of Regents to be placed again is detrimental, not only to those who are currently at Tennessee State University, our students who are matriculating at this time, but it also puts a taint on those of us who have already graduated. The Board of Regents was the entity under which Tennessee State was denied the $500 million that had it been granted under the Land Grant Act, or the Morrell Act. We wouldn't be sitting here today because they would have had the money to do the things that they needed to do. And further, even the Higher Education Commission does not recommend that TSU be placed again under the TBR, which is an entity now that is primarily focused on community colleges and technical schools. Even if you look at page 81 of the comptroller's report, you will see that that is designated by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission that they would not recommend it. In like manner.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
Okay, thank you. In like manner, I would leave you with this. The greatest room for improvement can be seen anywhere you go on any university. You show me a university that has no problems, and I'll show you a university that's closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Out of order. The next on our list to speak is, if I pronounce this right, Darrell Taylor. Sir, please approach the podium.
Greetings.
Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, I'm sorry. Greetings, Tennessee State University students, administration, alumni, and to the chairman and members of this committee. I am Darrell Taylor, a junior business administration major concentrating in management from Memphis, Tennessee. As I stand here today, I am constantly questioning the very reason that we are here. As I review the reports presented last week, I am more and more uneasy by the negativity shedded toward the recent nature of our university. To begin, the report displayed our significant increase in academic scholarships and enrollment. Upon my acceptance to Tennessee State University, I received a full-cost scholarship. It was truly a blessing to me, and it has allowed me to focus on my academics, leadership on campus, and growth and development, not only as a student, but professionally. Tennessee State University has provided me with these opportunities along with many other students. If these opportunities were to be taken away or reconsidered, it would certainly affect the future of our students. As a scholar who serves in the Student Government Association at TSU, I have personally witnessed the administration and Dr. Glover work extended hours to serve student by student and ensure they had the resources to remain enrolled and in good standing. This reflects highly upon the efficient and influential governing board at TSU. This is truly an uncomfortable position to be in as a student. I take pride in my university, and more students around the country are developing a deeper love and passion for HBCUs. The uncertainty that will come with such a drastic change, such as placing the university under TBR, is more than enough to raise concern surrounding our future collegiate experience and our HBCU experience. We are confident, as the students, that the Board of Trustees operates in the best interest of the university, that they are highly qualified, devoted, and geared for this university. As mentioned, the majority of issues at TSU are from the lack of resources. If we had the resources and funds that we are owed, we would not be facing the issues that we have today. Simply speaking, housing would not be in the state that it is in if we were given the promised dollars from the state. We cannot fault the Board of Trustees for not having the amount of resources needed from the state to manage this university efficiently. Without this primary support, they have still demonstrated an utmost commitment to this university. We should not be discredited, but rather applauded for our increased enrollment, funding for scholarships, and qualified administration. The fact that we are facing this level of backlash during one of the golden times at TSU simply shows the lack of genuine concern for the students' true well-being. To the state, we as students charge you to consider the students as the priority in this process. Without us, there would be no functioning university, and we, the students, are standing against the changes presented for our school. As I close, to Tennessee State University students and alumni, we will stand together. We will overcome the need to defend the great progress and prosperity in these accomplishments that we've made. We will continue to walk in the excellence bestowed to us by our university.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. You were right on time. Thank you, sir. He must have had that planned out. Next on the list is Howard Gentry.
2 minutes, 45 seconds.
Mr. Gentry, you're recognized.
How's everybody? My name's Howard Gentry, Jr., 1974 graduate of Tennessee State University. More importantly, I've been associated with Tennessee State University my entire life. My parents began working at TSU in 1949 until retirement. My growing years have been spent on campus. After graduation, believe it or not, I broadcast TSU football for 43 seasons. I served TSU Foundation Board of Trustees as treasurer and chairman. I worked in administration at TSU as executive director of the TSU Foundation, director of development, associate vice president for development, director of athletics, assistant vice president for university relations, and assistant vice president for technology and administrative services. I also served on the Fisk University Board of Trust for 6 years when we almost were forced to shut our university down. You're probably wondering why I just gave you my university resume. It's because I hope it will lend some credibility to why I am saying considerations 1 and 2 should not be included in today's decision-making process. To vacate the current Board of Trustees, to create a new board, to place a board in an advisory capacity, or to place TSU operations under the current structure of the Tennessee Board of Regents, to me defies logic. Why would one consider that placing a 100-plus year university under a regent system that has been retooled for community colleges? The chancellor is doing a fine job, but her background is community colleges. Their strategic plan, if you've read it, is geared toward community colleges. Are you aware that community colleges enrollment has been dropping the last few years in Tennessee and around the nation? The TBR is under the effort right now to increase enrollment. Tennessee State's problem is not from dropping enrollment, it's from increased enrollment. Is it logical to have the TBR attempting to manage a plan for reduced enrollment problem and increased enrollment problem at the same time? It just doesn't make sense to me. Also, institutions in Tennessee, community colleges, are facing decline in minority students across the state. They're working to rectify that problem, and they should, but that's certainly not TSU's problem. And when you have enrolling persons, enrollment problems where you're not getting enough students, then you're not getting enough money, that's not our problem either. So I'm just saying that TSU not having these problems, I'm bringing these examples just to highlight the fact that the TBR is not the answer. This board is capable of governing the university. 2 governors have personally selected and vetted each of them. The legislative body has approved them. It would be an injustice, a travesty, to vacate and restructure the board this time. The report is done. The board and management is already in motion, as you've heard. Let's give our board an opportunity to do what they have been tooled to do and have the intelligence and the ability to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Next, we have I believe I pronounced this correct, Crisonda O'Quinn. Excuse me if I mispronounced your name there, ma'am. Ms. O'Quinn, you're recognized.
Correctly. To the chairman and members of this committee, thank you for allowing me to make a statement regarding the matter before you as a student leader here at Tennessee State University. Again, I am Crisonda O'Quinn, a junior business administration major with a concentration in marketing and a minor in mathematics from Chicago, Illinois. My mother, LaShonda Warfield O'Quinn, was a student leader at Tennessee State University. Her administration of the Student Government Association did not hesitate to implement positive change on the campus for the betterment of the student body and the student body only. It is safe to say I'm not too far different from my mother. She is one of the main reasons why I chose to attend Tennessee State University. The core values of the university was embedded into her, and generationally passed down to me. Another reason why I chose to attend Tennessee State University is because the climate on the campus truly fosters success. Young African American students have a secure environment in which they can learn, develop, and support one another. There's a huge amount of skill and intelligence on Tennessee State's campus. I have developed sincere relationships with people, including the CAF employees, custodial staff, security guards, and last but not least, the students. They enrich this institution and are genuinely excellent. My beginnings at TSU have definitely been an adventure for the books for me. TSU has truly greatly aided my journey here at Tennessee State University. Is by seeing these students on a day-to-day basis. It's the faculty who genuinely care about me and have embedded so many values in me and given me opportunities I never thought I would have. For the past week, I think many of us have been wondering why TSU is in such target of such harsh measures. The student body has been harmed by poor choices and errors made by Tennessee State University, yet I do not think this justifies taking away our agency, our own ownership of our own space. I would hate for decisions to be made that would negatively impact the student body because the students are what have made the university what it is. For essentially, the students are the foundation. TSU has admitted to the faults they have made and made clear they determined to make things right. Giving Tennessee State University the chance to right their wrongs is only fair. I challenge you all, chairman and members of this committee, to seriously evaluate everything I have said, consider the student body. Removing our leadership at this time of success and progress for TSU is not the solution if you genuinely desire what's best for me and my fellow students. Giving my fellow students and I resources we need to keep up with our progress is a solution. The solution to be to visit the campus, make an effort to engage with the people there, and publicly support this university. Again, I thank you all for hearing me in my statement. Please consider everything I have said. The Board of Trustees have done absolutely amazing work. Our student trustee works day in and day out to bridge that gap between administration, the faculty, and the students, and to better our university. And I really want you all to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Quinn. I have one final speaker on the agenda today, Dr. Andrea Ringer, if she will come and speak on us quickly. We have to be out of here by 11 o'clock, and I don't want to adjourn this without some action being taken today. So if you will, we'll give you as long as we possibly can, ma'am.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name
Would
is
you
Dr.
please? I'm sorry, go ahead. Recognize yourself.
My name is Dr. Andrea Ringer. I'm an assistant professor of history at Tennessee State University. I've been there 5 years, just after the creation of the Board of Trustees. I appreciate the thorough investigation. I want to contextualize something that continues to stick out to me, which is the idea that student welfare wasn't brought up in these interviews. As someone who interfaces with hundreds of students each week at Tennessee State University, let me scale the idea down of reputation that keeps being brought up down to the classroom level. We prepare students for life after TSU, work beyond the classroom. I co-coordinate a grant-funded public history internship program that places TSU students throughout the city. That's a transformative experience. It's one they deserve. It's one that hinges on the university's reputation for us to get grant funds and for us to continue these relationships with institutions. I want the committee to think deeply about whether they have the fullest picture possible of the campus community and what it would mean for some of these outcomes to be implemented. I want to thank the comptroller for saying you care about the best outcome for TSU. I hope that after hearing these voices, there can be time to reflect on what that best outcome is. I hope the findings truly match the outcome, and I hope the path forward isn't punitive. I'll end by saying I think this is much bigger than TSU. One of the things the underfunding campaign demonstrated is the interconnected history and struggles of land-grant HBCUs. What happens here will have implications at other schools like TSU, schools that are also seeking to raise their research profiles, schools that are also seeking to redress wrongs, schools that are seeking to educate an important student demographic that has been historically underserved at other institutions, a student population that will leave a profound impact on the world around them after graduating from their HBCU. I hope that this moment and the significance of the outcome here isn't lost on the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ringer. Thank you to both sides for testimony. We are back in session, and I recognize Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion. Considering the comptroller's report and the promised corrective actions, I move to extend the TSU Board of Trustees for 1 year with a continuation of the reporting requirements previously discussed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have a proper motion. Do I hear a second? Been motion to second. We'll take the House vote first. All those in favor with the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. I would ask that the clerk call the roll for the Senate.
Senator Jackson. Aye. Senator Jackson votes aye. Senator Kyle. Aye. Senator Kyle votes aye. Senator Lowe. Aye. Senator Lowe votes aye. Senator Oliver. Aye. Senator Oliver votes aye. Senator Roberts. Aye. Senator Roberts votes aye. Vice Chair Crow. Aye. Vice Chair Crow votes aye. You have 6 ayes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision on this, that you have been extended for 1 year under the recommendations for the continued report, and we know and see by your comments today that corrective actions have been taken and will continue to be taken, and we do look so forward into coming back in next time and having even a wonderful report.
Make sure that Committee for Legislation.
Just 1 minute, please. We're not dismissed. May I have your attention, please? 1 minute. 1 minute, please. My bad. I must tell you that this is a recommendation to the full committee. It will be going to the full committee. Just want you to know that. It is a recommendation to the full committee. Thank you. To the full committee. Do I hear a motion for an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. We are adjourned.